Hello there, my name's Scott and today I'm going to be doing a review on the Ring Genesis Atomiser, which I received from a German modder who goes by the name of Pitt. Now, for whatever reason, Pitt has decided not to get a website like what a regular business would do. Instead, he does all his sales via sending him an email. So if you did happen to want to get hold of one, send an email to this address here. Now, for me personally, I think that's a really terrible way of doing business. You know, you can buy a domain these days for less than £1. The internet is full of free shopping cart software, so there really is no excuses to get a very simple and basic website out there so people can go along and check out securely, etc, etc. So mini rant over, get yourself a domain name and get yourself an actual website. Anyway, so before I start, I must point out I did receive this free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review, but my opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show you my Ring in a bit more detail. Okay, so here I have the Ring, which is a Genesis atomiser manufactured by a German modder who goes by the name of Pitt. And when you get this, you're also going to get a bag containing some spare O-rings and some spare grub screws. Okay, so the main material of the Ring is V4A stainless steel, and it's combined with this brass collar, and I will explain the functions of the collar as we progress. Now, as you can see, the brass here is all nice and shiny. That's because I gave it a quick polish before I started recording. But as you can see here, if I leave it alone for a week or two, it does start to tarnish quite quickly. And I know a lot of people do like that sort of patinaed look. On the base, you're going to find a 510 connector, so that means you can use it in all your favourite 510 devices. And you also get some laser engravings saying the Ring by Pitt and your serial number. The tank is made out of borosilicate glass and holds around 3.5 millilitres of e-liquid. And I've got to say though that the overall look of this atomiser is a really nice looking atomiser, but they completely ruined it by having this printed on the tank. And it's not even a good quality print either. As you can see, it's already starting to peel off there. And if I wanted to, I reckon I could take my fingernail and scrape the whole lot off, which personally I think would actually look a lot nicer. You then have this brass collar, which is also available in stainless steel but as an optional extra. And this is going to act as a airflow control. So as you can see there, you have your air hole, and in its most wide open position it's 1.7 millimeters. But if you want to have a tighter draw, just got to hold on to it, give it a bit of a twist, and as you can hopefully see, you start to close off the air hole. And you also have two of these. You have one on this side and one on the opposite side. So if you want to set it up with dual coils, then you can do, and you're going to have airflow passing over each coil. And you can also have it set up with both air holes open or one air hole open, just by basically sort of twisting this around. The top cap is held in position by these two O-rings, which do a good job of holding it all nice and securely. And as you can see from the atomiser deck, you've got quite a few options here. So in total there are 4 wick holes, which are each 3.4 millimeters. And you will get in the spares bag a selection of these little grub screws. So if you want to sort of close off the wick holes or leave them open, you can do, depending on how you've actually got it all set up. And as you've got 4 wick holes, you've got plenty of options for single coil setup, dual coil setup, U-wick setup, etc, etc. And it just uses the Phillips head screws for nice easy connection. And then with the top cap on, in the very top there, you've got space for your favourite 510 drip tip. And pretty much all the drip tips I've tried fit in there nice and securely. Okay, so I'll quickly go through how I've been getting the Ring set up, and I've been mainly using it with dual coils. That's what I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to be using some 0.30mm Canthil wire, and for my 2 wicks I used some 400 stainless steel mesh. Each wick was cut out at a length of 40mm by a width of 20mm, then rolled up to form a tube, then held in a hot flame for around 10 seconds to oxidise it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing one coil at a time. So as you can see, I've inserted the wick into the tank there and already attached the wire to the negative terminal. And in case you're wondering what this is here for, I like to add a syringe down to the middle of the wick just to sort of help strengthen it up when you're wrapping the coils. So what I'm going to do now is wrap around sort of 5 or 6 coils and then just finish it off by trapping it underneath the little washer there. And then just going to tighten it up, just sort of slightly. And then from there you can just sort of tidy it up, straighten it up, make it look a little bit more sort of presentable. And what you should have is something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, so I've just repeated exactly the same thing on the opposite side, but I've not attached the top of the wire to the positive terminal yet. So what I'm going to do is just lightly loosen this off. I don't want to go sort of too loose, just so I can sort of basically wedge it into there. And wrap that underneath the washer, and then from there tighten it back up again, and that will hopefully keep both coils in place. If I stop my fingers from shaking, that's it. Tighten it up, and then from there, now this is all secure, you can sort of tidy it up and make both coils look nice and presentable. So you should basically end up with something that looks a little bit like that. When it comes to removing the excess pieces of wire, you can use a pair of cutters, but for me personally, I prefer to apply a little bit of tension, give it a wiggle, and it should snap off nice and clean. Okay, so I've just done a quick test fire, and I can see that my coils aren't all lighting up evenly and at the same time at the moment, so I need to do a little bit of a pulsing. So what I'm going to do is just start pulsing on the switch, and then hopefully that will sort itself out, or I may need to get the old little screwdriver out and give them a little bit of a nudge. Let's just start pulsing and see what happens. So as you can see, the top coils are lighting up there, but not a lot else is happening. But if I keep going, it should eventually sort itself out. If it doesn't, then what I need to do is just get the old screwdriver out and give it a little bit of a nudge, and it should hopefully rectify it. And after a bit of mucking about, I've managed to get it sorted. Okay, so for the next step, I just need to take some e-liquid and fill out the tank. So I'm just going to insert the nozzle into the hole there. Give it a squeeze, and then just give it a second or two for the capillary action to start working, and hopefully we'll get some vapour. Okay, so once the tank has been filled up, you just need to add on the top cap. And as I'm going to be using dual coils, I'm going to be using the dual air holes as well. So as you can hopefully see there, you can see right through the top cap where I've got both air holes wide open. And I'm just going to make sure that the air hole is sitting directly in front of the wick. It should be about there. And then just finish off by adding your drip tip, and that's it, you're ready to go. Okay, so that is the ring by Pitt. Let's go ahead. See what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the ring, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show you in action. So I'm using an 18650 battery, which has come off the charger around sort of 20 minutes ago, so it should still be reading around sort of 4 volts. The tank has been filled up with some 18mg strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid, and the combined resistance has come out at 0.8 ohms, so it is a very low resistance there. Now, if you're not too sure what you're doing, if you don't really understand batteries too well, not too sure about resistances, etc., or if you haven't got any sort of common sense whatsoever, then please do not try doing a setup like this, because, you know, there is that potential for a little bit of danger there. So, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, please don't do it. Just stick to a regular sort of coil setup. Okay, so anyway, this is the ring. And as you can see, like vapour-wise, you know, you're getting plenty of vapour out of it. Obviously, just bear in mind though that the amount of vapour production you're going to get is going to be down to the way you've got it set up with regards to a single coil, a dual coil, the type of resistance they've come out at, whether you're using a kick, the type of e-liquid, etc., etc. There's quite a few sort of variables there, which is going to sort of determine how much vapour production you're going to get. But nevertheless, with the setup I've got here, getting plenty of vapour. And in terms of flavour, Absolutely tons of flavour with this dual coil setup. Definitely, like even with a single coil setup, you're still getting plenty of flavour. At the end of the day, Genesis atomizers, as long as they're sort of set up correctly, you're going to get plenty of flavour, plenty of vapour, plenty of throw hit. But with this dual coil setup, like the flavour, it literally is sort of double strength really, and it's very, very rich, very, very sort of very intense. And the same thing applies to the throat hit as well, getting a really proper strong throat hit. Now a few days ago I'd done a dual coil setup on the Valkyrie, and with that I'd done the micro coils, whereas this one I've got just these sort of regular sort of coils. Now with the Valkyrie, even though it was pretty much the same resistance, you know, you could take really long sort of direct lung inhales and, you know, getting a really ridiculous amount of vapour, but even though it's the same resistance, it comes out a little bit smoother with the micro coils, plus I was vaping on like a fruity flavoured e-liquid as well, which sort of tends to help. Excuse me. Whereas this one, as soon as you start dragging on it, you can feel so much heat, and you can really feel like your mouth sort of getting filled up with vapour, and you can feel the sort of harshness of it. So it's quite hard to do those sort of direct lung inhales with the sort of regular coils on there. If I was going to set this up with the micro coils, I can probably take really nice long direct lung inhales, but like I said, with the regular sort of coils, it's a little bit sort of too harsh for that. I'll have a go though. And that's about my sort of whack really. This in this sort of setup with the regular coils, it's definitely a lot nicer just to appreciate the flavour and the throw hit, rather than sort of trying to get the biggest sort of mushroom cloud that you can possibly get. But if that is what you're going to go for, then probably your micro coils are going to be a little bit better. Now set up like this, you can take sort of pretty short drags. You're still getting a really good amount of vapour, but for me, the main thing with this sort of setup is just an incredible amount of flavour coming out of it. The heat of the vapour, again, will be fairly down to how you got it set up with a single coil or a dual coil and a resistance, but with this setup, the vapour is very hot. You know, it really is a very nice warm vape. If you like your cooler vapes, again, a micro coil is going to help, a single coil is going to help, a slightly higher resistance is going to help, but with this sort of setup here, the vapour comes out really nice and hot. The draw on it, obviously in its most open position, it's 1.7 millimeters the air hole, and obviously you have got two of them. It doesn't particularly feel, excuse me, my buddy's gurgling, but it doesn't particularly feel like it's an exceptionally airy draw, even with both of the air holes open. It's a loose draw for definite, but not quite as loose as what you'd imagine it would be. Obviously, if you prefer to have a tighter draw, you can do. All you've got to do is grab hold of the collar, spin it around to sort of close off the air holes. So in terms of the draw, it's going to be all down to sort of personal preference, and you can have a tight draw and you can have a loose draw. Setup wise, now the dual coils are a bit of a pain in the arse because you haven't got one coil to worry about. Obviously you've got two coils to worry about, and if they've both got little hot spots, or if both of them are the coils aren't lighting up, you know, you obviously got double the amount of work to try and get it all set up nicely. In a single coil format, you know, it's a piece of piss really. You know, just sort of wrap your coils around it, nice easy connections, give it a few pulses, a slight nudge, and that's it. You should be good to go. But with the dual coils, it is a little bit more difficult. So and if you do struggle with coiling up a Genesis atomizer, it's definitely worth just sort of sticking to the single coils for the time being. And if you do stick to the single coils, it's a nice sort of easy atomizer to get set up and running. Build quality wise, I mean, like the overall build quality is a very nicely made atomizer. It looks like a really nice atomizer as well. Personally, I prefer it when the brass bit is nice and shiny. I know a lot of people prefer that sort of patinaed look. For me, it sort of looks a little bit grubby, if I'm honest, but when it's all nicely sort of shined up with a bit of brass, so you know, it looks the business. The one thing that really lets it down though is this god-awful print going along the tank. Obviously, you know, if you've got a fairly sort of dark juice in there, it doesn't sort of show up as much, but it just seems very, very unnecessary. And it's not even a good quality print either. I mean, like, well, saying I've almost just scraped off the R there with my finger now, and so it does come off very easily. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, if you've got a bit of cleaning solution on there and a light scouring pad, you can probably get rid of that in a matter of seconds. So it's not a particularly good print either, but it just really does lower the overall look of the Atomiser. And if you've got the print on this side, you know, there, it looks like a very nice, good quality Atomiser. You spin it around, it starts looking a little bit sort of on the tacky side. My own personal opinion, of course. So for me personally, I'd much rather see just a plain tank. You've already got the engraving on the bottom there saying the ring by Pitt, so you don't need to sort of really plaster your name all over it and with quite a poor quality print as well. Like I said, you know, it does tend to chip off fairly easily. So, but that is literally the only negative I've got with it. You know, is the ring by Pitt plastered across the tank. Other than that, it really is a very nice Atomiser. It performs excellent. You're getting brilliant flavour out of it in the dual coil mode. It looks good. You've got the airflow control. Big tank. It's a glass tank as well, so you haven't got to worry about sort of liquids, you know, cracking the tank if they sort of have a funny reaction to it, which some e-liquids do, like the cinnamons and the fluids, etc. So it's got everything going for it. You've got plenty of options as well under the hood. You know, you've got dual coils, single coils, U-wicks, whatever you want. And the only thing that really lets it down is the silly printing on the tank. But other than that, it's a very nice Atomiser. The other sort of is a slight negative is that if you're going to use it in dual coil mode, or dual wick mode, there is a slight issue. And that is, normally if I have a single coil, when I vape, I hold it so the wick is facing towards me. That way the sort of natural tilt is going to aid the wicking. Now with this, where the wick holes are directly opposite each other, you know, if you have one wick facing you, it means the other wick is actually out of the e-liquid, so you're going to get a dry hit on that wick. And if you spin it around, it's going to be exactly the same thing. So you have to try and make sure that each wick is on the left and right hand side of you, basically. And that's fine for the first sort of half of the tank, because you know, the juice is still making up to the sort of top of the wicks there as they're going through the Atty deck. But for the second half of the tank, you know, the wicks, the actual juice is quite low, and if you've got a dual coil setup, which is quite a low resistance, you know, you are going to be burning through quite a bit of juice, so you're having to sort of tilt it more and more and more. And that's the only sort of slight negative. If you're going to set it up with a dual coil, it's probably better to have the two wick holes a little bit closer together, so as you're tilting it, they're both getting sort of fed plenty of e-liquid. But like I said, it's a very sort of minor criticism. The main sort of bugbear for me is definitely the ring by Pitt. But like I said, I wouldn't be sort of too put off by that though, because you know, 5 minutes of work with a slightly rough cloth, and I'm pretty certain that will be completely gone, and you're not going to be left with any sort of any scratches or anything like that. Like I said, I can scrape it off with my finger now, and there's no damage to the tank whatsoever, because it is glass. It is going to be sort of fairly tough with regards to scratches anyway. Not a great deal else I can really tell you about it. If you fancy trying one out for yourself, you can't go along to a website, you ain't got one, so what you have to do is send an email to this address here. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. Also come along and visit my website at www.e-cig-reviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.